time for selling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the G-Cast with your host, Galen Hughes. Today, I want to talk about raising Bella. So Bella is the cutest North African Mastiff / American Pitbull that you've ever seen. She's brown and white and got the eyes full of love and dopiness. She is a bully breed. She is a bully. Lately at the dog park, she has been taking the balls and toys of other dogs and then gets mad at those other dogs when they come and try to get the toy back. I've been told that it's an age thing, and she's about a year old at this point, and that she will grow out of it. So fingers crossed. So with this podcast, and I intend for this podcast to be the first one, it's really a space for myself to speak my way to the answer. I'm going to say that again. I am speaking my way to the answers. So for me, part of my thought process has always been to verbalize what I think I understand and have that information corroborated externally to see to better form in my mind what the information is, and it solidifies it for me. So in class, it let me. It made me. I think it made me appear smarter than I actually was because I was parroting the information back exactly as I heard it. But the real reason was to not flex and show how smart I was. I wasn't really interested in that, but it was more so that I could more clearly understand the information that was just said to me and make sure that I understood it. Because I realized in high school that if the first time I learned something is the way I remember it most accurately. That is to say, like if I learned something else later that was conflicting information, or the original information that I got was somehow flawed, that it would be harder to go back and overwrite my original understanding of said information. And that's what this podcast is. This podcast is me trying to speak my way to the answer, and not that there is one answer. There are many different answers. Some are lead to better results than others, and it's worth exploring them from time to time to see what your understanding of the world is and to remedy it. It's also a space for me to think, right? It's part of my thought process. And another goal of the podcast is to take the learnings that I've had over the past couple of years and really encodify them more. So the healthy lifestyle changes that I've made, and to make them stick more, to make the lessons that I learn stick more through repetition and through having a log of them. And by having a log of them, I can listen back to myself at a later date to remind myself of the things that I've learned and the tools that I've cultivated and found along the way, along this journey of life, to more skillfully live it. Skillful living is something that it really became a big part of a really big interest in self-improvement and all that jazz. It became a focal point for me in my early 20s, probably 21, 22. And after graduating college and university, I became very intentional of how I wanted to live my life and what things that I wanted in that life. And unbeknownst to me, that should have been a thing that I was doing in university, in college, but I was so busy with schoolwork and so invested and involved with just being a student that I never really gave consideration for what type of an adult that I wanted to be. Unbeknownst to me, figuring out what type of an adult that I wanted to be and what type of life I wanted to live was something that I should have done during my years at Georgia Tech. However, I got so wrapped up and involved with my GPA, with school life and events and extracurriculars, and I just kind of got swept up and wrapped away in that experience, and that's fine. But I didn't really give any consideration to what was next outside of what was the prescribed path. for people in my degree and my major, and I, it wasn't until I started working full time that I realized that I was not on the path. I was not on the path that I wanted to be on. I was not living the way in which I wanted to live. And I was going to, even though externally and materially very successful and going to have, lots of money and status, that I would not become the person that I wanted to become. And so I made a drastic move and left that job and left the career and left the security to move to LA. And that was 2017. And now here we are 3 years later. I have accomplished what I set out to do in LA and am ready to move on to the next phase. And this podcast represents not only those 3 years here that I've spent in LA cultivating myself and finding myself, making the changes that I want to see in my life and really focusing on myself and moving forward, and also all the lessons that I learned in the past as well, and recontextualizing them with the growth and maturity that I have now, and also the a more complete perspective, I would say. I used to say a lot, like growing up, that I had a black and white view of the world, which is a bit funny because I my parents are black and white, one black, one white, and as I grew and as I experienced the world and traveled and all of these things, I saw that there are a lot more shades of gray. There are a lot more shades of gray, and it made things a little more complicated. Well, let's be real, a lot more complicated and more nuanced. And I've had to adapt and adjust to that, and sort of tailor my personality to more accurately represent what the world is actually about. I have a tendency to be on the extremes of things, extreme decisions, extreme standpoints. And the world isn't really like that. So here we are at the G cast. For all you G's out there, thank you. And back to the topic at hand, the first topic that I wanted to talk about when I started recording and started this podcast, which is raising Bella. Yeah, bringing it full circle. I'm talking about the pitbull again. Bella has taught me a lot. And I was very surprised at how much Bella has been able to teach me and continues to teach me to this day. Bella is well, was originally my girlfriend's dog, and then when I started dating my girlfriend, Ashley, at the time, she had just acquired this new puppy, maybe like a month old. And I remember on one of our first dates, one in the early days, we went to Obika in West Hollywood, and we were having brunch with one of Ashley's friends and their small puppy, which was Bella. And I resented Bella at first because I wanted to have my relationship with Ashley unadulterated. I felt that Bella was in the way and Bella was a nuisance. And by all means, I'm a dog person. I grew up with dogs. All my childhood, I'm comfortable with them. But I felt that she was in the way and she was an obstacle. And in some ways she was, and in some ways she wasn't. And I had to accept Bella and take responsibility for Bella and step in and be the disciplinarian. Like, I can't just tell my girlfriend to get rid of her dog. All right, that's not a good look. Especially those of the pit bull variety, because there are already so many of them in shelters. And Bella's a good dog. She's so energetic, and the line like "shake it like a red nose." It's different when you see it in person. Like, pit bulls don't wag with their tails; they wag with their bodies. They're so committed. No, but she's a little bundle of joy. The whole journey and the whole process of first having to take responsibility for Bella and her actions and actually start to train her was a big decision. I didn't want to make it, and I resisted it for a while until I stepped in and started playing a more active role, and it was the right thing to do. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It certainly wasn't what I planned to do. But at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do. And I think that there's ding 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 lesson number one about life. You don't get to choose like how things happen. Things just happen. You get to choose how you respond to those things. And I think the better that you respond to external factors, the better quality of life you lead, and the more, we'll say, skillful that of a life that you're leading, and how you interact with your outside world. And now moving on to disciplining Bella. You know, pit bulls are strong, right? I don't think that's a revelation to anybody. And they pull and they tug at the leash, and not only are they strong, but they enjoy pulling. Like they actually enjoy pulling things and pulling people. So, um, in addition to them already being strong, they enjoy that active pulling. And so when you're walking, you know, Bella on the leash, and she's pulling and nagging and tugging, it is easy to lose one's patience. Surprise, surprise. Easy to lose one's patience. And certainly my patience muscle has been trained immensely by Bella. And I really didn't have an area to exercise that patience muscle without Bella. So Bella has taught me patience, among many other things. And the next thing that comes to mind is my own ego. Bella challenges my own ego. And it's amazing that this small, unassuming creature which is, somehow very simplistic compared to human beings, is able to challenge me in a very real way, unlike other human beings have been able to. And so I'm even now I'm taken aback by the complexity and the depth that Bella has and is expressed all through eye contact, just making eye contact with Bella and building that bond that we have. I've been I've been challenged, and it's ultimate trust, ultimate faith, all trust, all love, nothing less. Dogs will teach you something about compassion and love. And back to that point on disciplining Bella, I noticed that as I was training her and getting her to sit and lay down and roll over and whatever it is, or stop pulling on the leash. That's the big one. That I would get angry and I would get frustrated at Bella, but I wasn't frustrated with her. I wasn't frustrated with her actions. I was frustrated because I perceived her to be defying me, defying my actions and orders, and I would get mad and pull the leash, a little harder, maybe a little too hard, or running with her, try to run faster than her, which is obviously never going to be a thing. Uh, to try to wear her out and try to get her to like bend to my will. And through the process of that, I realized that that's what I was doing. Like I wasn't mad at her for you know for not doing what I said. It was like that's the whole reason I was mad, because I viewed it as her defying an order and defying my ego and like usurping my will. And it's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with my ego and my willpower. I was taking it personally. I was taking it very personally, and I shouldn't have been. It was an incorrect way of viewing the situation and of the world. And I remember on a walk over to Ashley's place, um, I took my time and I walked with her, and I dedicated. I was like, well, this is what we're doing. We're walking over, and as long as it takes for you to, walk nicely next to me without pulling and dragging and tugging on me, that's how long it's going to take. And there's definitely an element of stubbornness in there, but also it's like this is what it's going to take in order to get to the place where I want to go, where she can walk nicely with me on the leash all the time. And my perspective changed a lot when I wasn't taking it personally anymore, and was able just to encourage her with the behaviors that I wanted to see. And I'm so excited when she does sit, because it's like, look at what you can do. Look at what you can achieve. I knew it. I believed in you, rather than, "Oh, you're so stupid, you're so disobedient, you're so willful. Why won't you just listen to what I'm saying?" And I know which one I prefer. I definitely prefer the first than the latter. The latter just has all these negative emotions tied up into it, and it's not a good way to feel, and it creates anger, and that anger leads to lashing out, and that's not good for anybody. And Bella has really challenged my ego in that way. And I thought that and this is always the thing too, when you become aware of the ego and you try to address it, you think that you're making progress on dealing with your own ego, and that becomes fuel for your ego. It's very subtle, and it slips in through the back door. So, I actually I have to be grateful to Bella, because she's broken me out of that mold and really challenged me on a core level. Similarly, when I take Bella to the dog park, and she's gotten into a couple scraps with a couple dogs, nothing serious, but the dogs are just being dogs, and they get into it. I trust her not to take it too far, and and if she so long as she is able to have faith in me and trust in me as her leader, then she will feel safe and not act out. She really made me step up my leadership game, because she's looking to me to lead. Bella is looking at me for leadership. And if she doesn't have it, like early on in our relationship, she was a lot more likely to act out, act silly, be disobedient, be willful, be naughty, chew things up, piss on the carpet, all of these things, until she could really have, faith and trust in me that I'm going to take care of her, look after her, make sure she stays out of danger, and provide for her. And all of these things, just from the simple, mundane task of, having and raising a dog and being a responsible dog owner. Um, it really gives you a perspective, and it's also good training if you want to have a child together. Like if you and your girl are shacked up, and you want to take it to that next stage, or you're living together, get a dog. And I say dog and not cat, because cats kind of do their own thing, and they're inherently more independent. But get a dog and see how you guys interact together as a unit with that dog. Certainly, that's a good indicator of whether or not you're ready to have, and raise a small human. Um, it doesn't take anything special to have yet another human. It's just biology. But it is something special to raise that human in such a way that they become well adjusted and well adapted to society, and aware of the pitfalls and the dangers of the world, and remain bright and optimistic and cheerful, and are able to thrive well in the world. It is not a trivial thing to raise a child. But that's Bella. I love her. she's annoying sometimes, and she acts up sometimes, and she'll be naughty sometimes. But at the end of the day, I love her, and my life has definitely been improved, and my life is better, because she is here, and I wouldn't have it any other way. At this point, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that she's around. I love that she's here. I love that she likes to go on walks, and she's very energetic and playful. Even when I'm not in the mood sometimes. It's uh it's definitely a blessing. And now it makes sense to me why the monks that I listened to told me that if I wanted to learn something about compassion, then I should, get and raise a small dog or big dog, whatever. It doesn't matter. It'll teach you something about exercising compassion to another living being, and being kind, being magnanimous, being generous, all of which are qualities that I want to cultivate within myself. And I think, that's really all I have to say about Bella for now. Yeah, it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing journey and development. I would like to see her better socialize with other dogs, but in our current climate of coronavirus, of the COVIDs, so most of the dog parks are closed or open, or some are open then they're closed, and who knows. Um, but it's important to me that she gets along well with other dogs and is not immediately hostile. Um, just because of the stereotype that pit bulls already have attached to them. I want her to be a stellar example with no faults. No faults that people can criticize or critique her on anyway. But yeah, that does it for my thoughts and discussions and reflections on really on Bella. And if you're lonely out there, if you're depressed, you're feeling like you need a little bit more in your life, and you feel like you're ready to take on that responsibility, get a dog. Get a dog. Raise a dog. Raise a puppy. Build that bond with that other living being, and it'll teach you a lot about yourself in kind, which is something that was not immediately evident to myself. All right, all you G's out there, thank you again for listening to the first episode of the G Cast with your host, Galen Hughes. You can find me on Instagram at ga.hug. You can find me on Twitter, tweet at me, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter at that boy Galen, boy with an I, because that's that fuckboy life. And be on the lookout for YouTube content as well. I'm setting up my studio right now for recording video as well, and we'll get that popping off.